Welcome to Mondays with Michelle, where every week we share real stories of hope, healing, and faith. I'm Michelle, and together we'll meet incredible people whose journeys will encourage your heart and inspire your walk with Christ. I'm so glad you decided to spend your Monday with me, and I hope this week's episode is the fuel you need to help you begin your week. Happy Monday again. We are at another week and exciting things to happen for you this week. But today we are going to share a special guest, and I want to introduce how I met our special guest today. A unique situation. So my daughter got engaged a little while ago, and she wants to find a dress. So we've been on the adventure of looking for dresses. So we went to our first bridal shop. She tried on dresses, beautiful, but that was her first adventure with the dresses. So we thought, we need to go check out another place. So we found another place, booked our appointment, showed up, and what a difference in how we were treated and the atmosphere. And I thought, I need to share that with the owner. Like, hey, this is a good experience. Thank you so much. We had went to the other place and 100% different. And when I told her that, she had to tell me, hey, you don't know the story behind how this place came about. So we have Donna with us today, and I want her to introduce herself. And if you're a business owner, I'm glad that you jumped on today to listen, because you are going to be very excited to hear her story. So Donna, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Donna Seda. I am co-owner, along with my sister Melissa, of Tool Bridal Lake Norman here in Mooresville, North Carolina. And yes, I was just very excited to meet you and your daughter that day. And to go right into it, when you started asking me about, let me backtrack a little bit. We hear all the time when people come in our store, like, it's just so different in here. The atmosphere is so different in here. And one of the first things I said to you was, at the end of the day, it's not about the dresses in our store. It's really not about the business. It's our ministry. That when God brought me this business, he said to me, listen, I know who's going to come in your store tomorrow, the next day, 5 years from now. And I may need you to give them a hug. I may need to prompt you to say something to them. You may need to pray for them. Some girls need to hear that they look beautiful and that they are beautiful. So really, the store is our ministry. Yes. That God brought us. It all started back in 2013. This March, we will mark 5 years in business. But it really all kind of started like 2012, 2013, where my son, Kyle, played ice hockey for many, 18 years actually. And my husband and I were flying to Kansas to go watch him play in a game. He played junior hockey. And we boarded this airplane. And we were in first class. He was on the one end and I was on the other end. We were not sitting side by side. And there was a woman sitting next to me in her chair. And you could tell she was all kind of nestled in and all comfortable. And she looks at me and she says, oh, did you want to sit next to your husband? I'll be happy to move. And I said, no, I'd rather much talk to you the whole flight than him. And, he's going to put on his little earphones and, pretty much get absorbed in whatever it is that he was doing. So I sat next to this woman and we started talking. At the time, I was doing some work with New Balance. I worked for a company that designed and manufactured all of the accessories for like backpacks, yoga mats, yoga bags, any accessory that they had for each one of their different departments. I was doing. So she had asked me what I did. So I was explaining to her that I was doing this for New Balance. And I said, you wouldn't believe it, this past weekend was nationals here in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I said, and we made all of the backpacks for all of the participants in every age group. And there was hundreds and hundreds of participants, hundreds. So this is kind of like the first kind of God moment, second God moment, right? The first God moment was sitting next to her. The next God moment was, I said to her, I said, and we had this one age group, and I said, oh, I made the bags came in wrong, and I had to go have them all remade. And I went and I delivered them through a horrible storm from Hickory, North Carolina to Greensboro, North Carolina. And I said, and I got there late, and all the backpacks for that age group were waiting on me. And she looks at me and she says, oh, is that why my granddaughters were delayed? So I was like, that's kind of strange that of all the people I sit next to right now, that it was your granddaughters in that age group for that backpack. So that was kind of like a little aha moment, right?
Right.
So we kind of started talking. It was so like surreal for me. Now, God always shows up in my life, so in these really weird, strange ways. So I wasn't shocked, but I was like, okay, God's here, and that's just bizarre. So then I asked her what she did, and she said, oh, I work for a wedding gown designer, very high-end wedding gown designer. And I said, oh my, I have always wanted to open up my own bridal store. And she's like, oh, my daughter owns a store. She owns two stores in North Andover. Actually, at the time, she only owned one store in North Andover, Massachusetts. And then she starts to tell me that her daughter is the founder and the president of Brides Across America. Now, then I'm in marketing, right? So my whole life I'm in marketing for many companies at the time for New Balance with New Balance. But she says, "Oh, my daughter is the founder of Brides Across America," and I said, "Oh, tell me about it." So it's a program that gifts wedding gowns to the United States military. And so she started telling me all about it. I'm like, and she's like, and we're kind of struggling because it's just the two of us, and we really want to grow it. Don't know how. But Heidi started it. Heidi Jansen is her daughter, and she started it in 2008. And the way that she started it is we kind of were coming out of the Gulf Wars, and a lot of our soldiers was still overseas in Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and all of that. And she was watching a news program, Heidi was, and the guys, they were interviewing a soldier. And the soldier, goes through his whole story and how it is to be there. And he's so proud to be an American, and he's really proud to be, doing what he's doing for our country and for our safety. He said, but I just don't want my fellow citizens to forget about me, to forget about us over here. So Heidi's like, oh, well, what can I do? Like, I got nothing, but what can I do? And that's how Brides Across America was born, by watching this television interview of a soldier. And she's like, okay, well, I own a wedding gown store. I have wedding gowns that I can give away. And then she started tapping into all of her resources of everybody that she knew. And everybody's like, oh, it's such a great idea. And that's how Brides Across America was born.
So when
So
was that? What year? Then when was that founded?
that was, yeah, that was in 2008.
Okay, so it's pretty new because I had never heard about it. So that's just
Yeah.
an amazing
Yeah.
program that how they're giving back.
And exactly. And we're such a big part of it. And I've been such a big part of it since 2012 because I sat next to Terry on the airplane, and her daughter was the founder. And I said to Terry while we were sitting on the plane, because we were flying from Charlotte to Chicago. So we had a lot of time to talk to each other. And I said, oh, I would love to come and help you gratis for Brides Across America. I'm like, I got a marketing. Let me take a look at your website. Let's look at how we can reach more people. And I said, so New Balance is based out of Boston. And I was heading up to Boston the following week, was after I got back from this trip. And I said, why don't I meet you and your daughter for lunch or dinner, and let's talk about what we can do. So a week later, I flew into Boston, and I met with Terry and her daughter, Heidi, and we hit it off right away. It was, we had a wonderful time. And obviously I spent 2.5 hours on a flight with Terry. So we went and we talked. And so from 2012, I started helping Brides Across America. From how can we reach more people? How can we let people know about us? What do our events look like? How can we give away more gowns? Now, since 2008, they've given away, Brides Across America has given away over 28,000 wedding gowns. They have provided 30 fully paid for weddings for military brides. Now, I don't remember the year of the Boston bombing. So the Boston bombing was close to home for all of us, Heidi, myself, and Terry, because I whenever I went into Boston, I stayed at the hotel where everything happened in front of, and I should have been there, but I because it was a whole big New Balance thing. The New Balance store was there. There was a big, huge tent. New Balance was doing a huge program there. So a lot of the people that I worked with were at the event. So when the Boston bombing happened, there was a girl. Her name is Roseanne Sadaya. She was a victim of the bombing and she lost her leg.
Mm.
Well, she ended up marrying her first responder
Oh.
from that tragic day. And she is one of the weddings. We definitely gave her a wedding gown. We definitely provided some stuff for her wedding. We helped her with her wedding. Everybody just comes together. So we started including first responders in the Brides Across America program for this period of time, just because, a lot of my colleagues were there. Heidi lives near Boston, so it really kind of hit us close to home.
Right.
So then fast forward to COVID, right? So when COVID hit, a lot of the nurses were in the beginning were getting really sick and they were actually dying, because the way that a virus works, right,
Hmm.
kind of hits the air, comes into you, and they didn't know. They were just helping people. And the first thing is, let's get a trach in, let's do whatever we need to do. And it exposes a lot of fluids and liquids, if you will. So we actually included frontline COVID responders in that as well.
What a
So,
blessing that you thought outside of the box of people that are going to need the help. I know my daughter was in the hospital as a nurse working during the COVID times, and she would tell me, Mom, I have to gown up. And then when I come out of the room, I got to take it all off. Then I got to gown up again and go in the. And then she sent me a picture and she had, like, I don't know, a couple different masks. And I'm like, wow. But there was people all over the world doing it. Like, so that's great that you gave back to those people that
yeah,
were risking their lives, really helping those patients.
100%.
Hmm.
Now, we still include first responders like EMTs, and it's a charity, right? So there's a lot of rules and regulations with it. But now that COVID's over, like the frontline COVID, we've retired that, and our focus is back on really the military, because they give us so much. Now, in the military, you don't have to be, you could just be marrying the military person. You don't have to be the one in the military. So, what happens is, you go on to bridesacrossamerica.com if you're in the military and you register for an event. Now, the events happen all over the country because many stores, like myself, open their doors to the military brides. So really, you can all over the country. We just had our past event here in July, and I believe we gave away 16 dresses. Yeah, 16 dresses, in our store that day. So our whole staff comes in. My dad, who is a vice commandant of the United States Marine Corps, he comes in. They come in uniform. We have the American flags out. Like, it's a whole big. I'm a military family, right? So it's just really special in my heart, which is why when I talked to Terry on the plane that day, I'm like, I would absolutely love to help you.
Wow.
So it's very rewarding. I we spent a weekend in Alexandria, Virginia, and every bride, I believe almost every bride was in the Navy themselves. They were the military. And Monty from Say Yes to the Dress in Atlanta came in and helped me dress brides. We did 28 brides. I think we did it in a day or a day and a half, and it was like incredible. So we shipped dresses everywhere. We shipped dresses from Brides Across America warehouse to the hotel in Alexandria, Virginia. I set up the night before an entire suite that looked like a little bridal shop, and they gave us like the presidential suite, and we had all this food, and the Marriott was amazing to us. So Monty and I dressed all those brides, and every bride left with a dress that day. Dress, shoes, a veil, and like I said, it's so rewarding. So, all from sitting next to a woman on a plane,
Right.
right?
You never know who you're sitting beside on the plane.
And
But
not only that, you never know where God is going to lead you. I had a tumultuous life in my business life, right? I would be with companies and the company would get sold and, you would lose your job and you start questioning yourself. Like you didn't get the promotion that you thought you should have gotten or, all these things. And you think it's the devastating and it's the end of the world. And if I have one thing to say to young people is don't get caught up in it because I sat next to this woman on the airplane, right? Help them with Brides Across America. I always wanted to open a bridal store. I searched high and low for a retail space that I could afford and that I could work on. And in November of 2020, I found a spot in here in Mooresville, North Carolina. It was on Main Street, and I'm like, oh, it's perfect. Let's do it. I would drag my mom and my sister everywhere, like to the point where they're like, oh, another place we're gonna go look at. I'm like, yeah, another place. So we go and I'm like, this is the place. My mom and my sisters, everybody's excited. And I get the contracts and I start praying over them, right? Because in my old life, I would have jumped and said, this is what Donna wants. This is what Donna's going to do. But God has brought me so far that I said, I'm going to pray over this. And God is always talking and we have to make sure we're listening, right? Mm-hmm. So I started praying over the contracts for the lease, and I kept hearing no. So I think I had to give the answer by November 30th, and I just heard no. So I called the guy and I said, "Listen, I can't do this. I'm not gonna take that space," and which was totally a God thing. I could cry because that was November. I'm sorry. Let me back up. That was November of 2019. That not 2020, 2019. Because come March 20th, I think it was like March 15th, the entire world closed down from COVID.
Right.
I would have lost everything. Mm-hmm. I would have lost everything.
Right.
But being obedient to God, and then, sometimes he says no, but sometimes he says not now. And I really thought it was a hard no for me. And I said to my sister and I said to my mom, you know what? That's not where we're supposed to be. It's not what I'm supposed to do. I'm just going to let it go. And then COVID, right? We lived all through COVID, a year and a half. Mm-hmm. I really never thought about the store again because I really thought it was a hard no. It was December of 2020. I was like, oh, well, bummer, we're not gonna do the store or whatever. There's just no place for it around here. Let it go. So my husband's family owns a building here in Mooresville, and it's a 1,500 square foot building, but it's where like all his family left all their stuff, right? So it was like there was like a jet ski in there, a car in there, toolboxes, and there was these little paths to all of our stuff, right? So one night, my husband and I had to go get one of our boxes from our stuff. So, and now mind you, I'm not even thinking about the bridal store anymore. So we go into the building, we call it the building, right? We go in the building and we make our way to the path and I pick up the box. Like literally, I pick up the box, have it in my hand, and I hear clear as day, why not here? I turned and I looked at my husband and I said, with the box in my hand, I said, why not here? And he's like, what are you talking about? And I said, the bridal store, let me do it here. And he's like, do you see this place? I'm like, yes, I do. I'm a visionary. So I immediately saw what it could look like because I know the footprint of the store. And then like the next person, immediately I call my sister and I say, you're going in business with me. I said, we're going to do the store, the bridal store. And she says, where? And I said, the building. And she says, do you see that place? And I said, yes, I do. Now, my sister is not a visionary, Melissa. So she says, listen, and she knows me. She's like, if you see it, I'm in. I said, okay. So we rolled up our sleeves. We had to get with all my in-laws now, right? Because now they all got to move their stuff, which took months to do because, they weren't planning on moving their stuff. And once everything was out, I mean, we did everything. We put up the drywall, we sanded the drywall, we painted. My husband built all the racks and the dressing rooms, and my brother-in-law Ben did the floors, and he's a furniture maker, so he made the pedestals, the front desk, and we opened on March 13th of 2021, just coming out of COVID. And our first day we were open, and I'm going to go back to to Heidi and Terry and tell you the biggest impact that they had, not only sitting next to them, but they actually helped me open this store in a mighty way. So when we opened on March 13th of 2021, we had 16 appointments. 15 brides bought dresses that day.
Wow.
It was incredible.
Then
Like,
you know, hey, that is
yeah,
God saying, you waited and now look.
yeah, exactly, right?
Mm.
So what happened was we were able to open because my Heidi, who now owns, right, she owns the Tool Bridal in North Andover. And during the time I've known her and working with her Brides Across America, she opened up Tool Salem, New Hampshire. And she said to me when I said, listen, I'm going to do my own store and I'm going to do it in my husband's family's building. And I said, and she says, well, why don't you name it Tool? And why don't you tap into everything I already have? Because don't reinvent the wheel. I've got a POS system. I've got the website. You don't have to build any of that. Literally, it was turnkey open. Turnkey. She helped me get the dresses from all over. We shopped and shopped and shopped. From the moment we decided we were going to do it, we started shopping for the dresses because when we opened, we were 100% off the rack dresses. So there was no ordering, which we've come a long way now. We have orderables. We design our own gowns. We have our own factories. Our price points are amazing for a brand new gown that you can make all kinds of customization to, and there's nothing in our store over $2,000, and most of them are $7.99 and $9.99. Um, but Heidi was such a huge part, and again, all because I sat next to her mother on an airplane. So when I tell you that this is truly my ministry, it is my ministry. These dresses are secondary. I always get teared up about it because there's no way Donna Seda could have done with the limited resources that I had that Donna Seda could have done this. Now, we'll be open 5 years this March. And during that time, we have prayed over um, brides. We have prayed over their marriages. We have prayed for terminally ill people that were in our store. Like, grandma's terminally ill and she's here today because I want to make sure she sees my dress. And we stop and we prayed. And on the flip side, people come up to us and say, can we pray for you? I'm like, absolutely. Absolutely. We had 3 African American women. It was a Thursday. We're not even open on Thursdays. And we were at the store. This is in our original store. And we were getting a delivery. So my sister and I were hanging dresses. We didn't even we had shorts on and we were a mess. The store was a mess. And we get a phone call and they're like, hey, we need a dress for our bride. And I'm like, great, let me get to the schedule. She's like, no, we need to do it today. And I'm like, we're not even open today. She's like, well, we're on our way. I said, okay, but know that our store is a mess. We are not dressed properly. That whatever. They're like, don't care. We prayed about it and we're on the way. And come to find out, so they came in and the bride was blind. And she was getting married in a week. And those 3 women said to me and my sister right before we got her a gown. We got her to a seamstress because she would literally only had 4 days because she was leaving to get married in New York and she was getting on an airplane. It was Thursday and she was leaving Tuesday, something like that. So they start praying for us. And now I truly am. If you meet me, you have to know that I am deeply rooted in Jesus Christ, who he is and what he has done for me, meaning he died on that cross for me. And when he died on that cross for me, he never had to do another thing for me. But he loves me so much that he does. So these three women start praying. Now my sister, she's just coming along, right? She's a Christian. She knows who he is, but I study a lot, so she's coming along in her walk with him. So they start praying for us, and they start praying in tongues. And I'm fine with it, because when people start praying in tongues, I get visions of what they're saying. That took a long time to learn, but I can start seeing visions and see what they're saying through that. So, but as they're praying, I'm thinking to myself, oh, what is my sister thinking? She probably thinks they're crazy. We're all crazy. Here we are. She probably doesn't even understand that this is tongues and we're not supposed to. Like, I'm thinking all these things while I'm bowing and having my moment with these women. Well, I open my eyes and my sister is bawling her eyes out. And then the woman looks at her and says, I'm going to pray for you specifically. Now, mind you, we did not talk about anything personal. So she starts praying over my sister and saying, like, basically not verbatim, but like, the rug is not going to be pulled out from you. Stop worrying that it's all going to go away. But now she's crying even more. And she's like, how did you know? She's always had this. So now she doesn't have in the back of her mind that, right? Because it's like, we've my sister and I were in business once before, and the whole world fell apart, and we lost everything. And so in her mind, she's like, "Oh, when's the rug going to get pulled out?" And I'm like, "Well, this is different, because this is totally God. And if He does, He does at this point, right?" So it's all in His hands, and I truly mean it from the bottom of my heart. That store is not about the dresses. That is about women coming in and being empowered to say and look in that mirror, I am beautiful and I look beautiful. And I don't care what size you are. We do not care. We've made a dress for someone where they don't even make her size. But we made her the dress, and she was beautiful. And she was so grateful to us. And here's the thing: we always say we're such terrible businesswomen, because we're like, oh, what do you mean you can't afford it? Okay, well, let us take money off, you know, because we really, really were there when we opened. Our whole philosophy was, we want women to be able to have great dresses at a great quality at a price that's not going to break their bank.
Right.
And, so when you look at this crazy life that I've led. I can go on. I mean, I've done some incredible things in my life too. I've spent a lot of time in Asia and China, which allows us to do what we do, because I understand the culture. I have a 10-year visa. I am a known person through customs. So we now design our own dresses and have our own contracts with our factories. Um, so we're direct from factory, and there's no middle people. So we just pass the savings along to the girls. Listen, we can charge three, four, five, $6,000, but we don't, because that's not what this is about. And God will reward us monetarily, financially. God's going to take care of us. But there's so much more to what we get out of it than we can ever describe.
Right. And look where he's brought you from. And as you were talking, I was thinking, what if you never sat beside that lady on the plane? Like, where would you be today if you did not sit there? And then going back to God saying, don't get the place. Like, nope, there's the contract, but don't do it. But what if you would have taken that step and said, well, I'm going to do it? And a lot of people do that. Like, they think they know, but this podcast, and most people probably wonder why it's called Mondays with Michelle 2911. The 2911, it stands for Jeremiah 2911. And that verse, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. So God has a plan. We just have to pray and follow him and listen to what he says. And you did.
Absolutely. And I'm not right. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you, listen, I just turned 60 years old.
You don't
If
look
I
it. You do not look
then yeah, I just turned 60 in July. If I had anything, I would not redo anything in my life, even through tumultuous times, because I wouldn't be the person I am today. But if I had anything to say to young people, is know him sooner and trust him sooner. right? I had to go through what I had to go through with my relationship to get to where I am with my relationship with Christ, right? He made me, he knew me, he knew the choices I was going to make. But again, he's always talking. I just wasn't listening. Now I listen, right?
Right.
Because, and I don't always listen. We're not perfect. We're all sinners. We all fall short of the glory of God. We're sinners. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I'm a human being, right? But at the end of the day, I wouldn't change my relationship with Jesus for anything.
Right.
And if I had another thing to say to people, like, hope is always there. I
Yes.
mean, if we had like hours, I could go tell you things that have happened to me throughout my life, throughout my career, and things that I've done, and things that I'm not proud of, and I, just so many things. But God, you've got to be rooted in Him, and He's not. Listen, be in His Word. And here's the other thing too, right? If you're reading your Bible and nothing's making sense, don't worry, it will. Right? You keep reading, and the scripture is gonna jump off the page. Even now, and I've read the Bible several times through from cover to cover, and even now, like right now, number 6:23 through 26, I'm like, I never looked at it that way before. Yeah, give me your peace, give me your hope, right? And I'm like, oh, it just jumps off the page. He's still talking to us in different ways, and there is always, always, always hope.
Yes.
Always.
Well, I'm so thankful for
Even
everything that you've done, especially explaining to us about the Brides Across America. I had no clue and didn't even think about the military and they couldn't afford a wedding or couldn't get a dress. And so what a blessing and what a ministry. And then for brides too, how you're helping. Weddings can be very expensive. Things add
weddings
up.
are very,
So that is
yeah,
a blessing what you're doing to encourage the brides and help them. And I think you
yeah.
might have before we end today, I think you might have some exciting news you might want to share.
Yes, I would love to share that. So we're Two Bridal LKN Two Bridal LKN. You can Google us. And anybody who says, "Hey, I saw you on the podcast," we're going to give you $50 off your wedding gown.
$50
Yeah,
off. So if you're getting
yep. So
married or
very
you know
exciting.
someone,
Yep, and remember, there's nothing over $19.99 in the store. So the price points start at $7.99. Then that's all are off the rack. You fall in love, you leave with it. High end designers. $9.99, $14.99, and $19.99 is our exclusive collection. Most dresses are between $9.99 and $14.99. I think there's only like 6 dresses that are $19.99. So again, affordable. You can make changes. We own all our own patterns, so you can mix and match. I want this top with this bottom. Okay, we'll do it for you.
yes, great. I know firsthand, great people to work with, an awesome
Thank you.
experience. And
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. When I first met her and she started telling me, I sat beside this lady on the airplane and I'm like, you sound like you have a great story. Have you ever been on a podcast? And she said, no. And I'm like, you have to share. So I am so grateful for her taking her time this Monday to come share and hopefully business owners or even you personally really learned something from her today. If anything, you learned, how God can help you through everything. Listen to him. He has,
Everything.
yep.
I would not have this without him.
Mhm.
There's no way that I literally sat next to a woman on an airplane, and 10 years later, they helped me open my store. And last year, or sometime, I want to say maybe January, December, I was on the phone with Terry, who I sat next to. And she said, "Hey, do you remember what you said to me when you sat on the plane?" I said, "Absolutely." I said, "I've always wanted to open my own wedding gown store." I said, "And you and your daughter were the one that helped me there." And she's like, "Yeah." She said, "I was thinking about it the other day." And I said, "That's just incredible."
Wow. Your
And
dream
I
came
would also
true.
say, right. And I would also say this too, like if you're doing a business and you need someone just to pray with you about it, I'd be happy to pray with you about it for sure.
Thank you, Donna. That's sweet.
You're welcome.
Well, we are out of time already. This has been great.
Oh,
We've
awesome.
we've learned so much. And remember, if you want that $50 off, you need to contact them and tell them that you heard Donna on the podcast. But thank you again, Donna. I appreciate it. And
Thank you.
everyone have a good week. And we will see you next Monday. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for Mondays with Michelle. If today's story encouraged you, please share it with a friend. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you have an inspirational story to share, or you would like to be a guest on the future episode, please send an email to mondayswithmichelle2911@gmail.com. See you next Monday.
Like and subscribe to Mondays with Michelle.